welcome to the Predictive Playbook. I'm your host, John Ryan. The 147th running of the Kentucky Derby is going to take place at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky tomorrow, set to start at 6:57 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This year's race is going to be exciting. It has several legitimate contenders in what is probably the most evenly matched field based on speed figure scales since the 2011 Derby, won by a 20-1 long shot, Animal Kingdom. So for those looking to learn how to handicap and place Kentucky Derby bets, there is no better guest to have on the show today than co-founder of Wager Talk, Marco D'Angelo, and 36 years of horse racing betting wisdom. Welcome to the show, Marco, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
No problem, John. This is my favorite week of the year, no question about it, because obviously, I cover all the sports. But horse racing is a passion, a personal passion of mine. I've been involved in horse racing since 1986, owning, breeding, and racing them. And so when it comes to Kentucky Derby week, the fan in me is very excited. But as a sports bettor and a guy that, bets for a living, this is also a very good week to be betting. And this is the one race, if you bet a race at all, this is the one race you want to bet.
Oh, I agree. And I guess the reason why is because there's 20 horses and not too many races have that many. And there's all these combinations. Seems to be the majority of the field between 10 and 20-1 odds, which can create all kinds of opportunities for even the novice bettor.
Well, John, honestly, you're exactly right as far as the deep field produces bigger payouts. But what really produces bigger payouts is this will be the most bet race of the entire season. And what I want to point out, we're familiar with betting sports. When we bet sports, John, when you make a bet, I make a bet, me and you's not going against one another. We're trying to beat the house. The house is holding the bet. It's an 11-10 transaction. You wager $110 to win 100, and it's you against the house. They set a point spread. In horse racing, John, you are betting against everybody else that's betting that race. The house, the racetrack, sportsbook, whoever is taking the action makes the same amount of money on that race, whether it's a 99-1 shot that wins the race or it's a 1-9 favorite that wins a race, because they take what is called a hold. It's a percentage of the handle. Now, the rest of that handle, or pool as it is referred to, the wagering pool, is divided then among the winning ticket holders. So obviously, the more money that is in that pool, the bigger the pie. When you get a slice of it, it's going to be a bigger payout. And for me, somebody that is considered an advantage player meaning that I have an edge over the average John Q. public making a wager. And there's going to be people wagering on this Kentucky Derby, John, that is the only race they're going to bet maybe all year, because it's an event. It's the Super Bowl of horse racing. They want to be a part of it. They want to go to a party. They want to have a mint julep, but they want to have some action. And they're going to bet. Maybe they're going to bet their favorite numbers. Maybe they're going to bet their favorite color, the jockey silks, whatever. Or they like a name of a horse. They don't know what they're doing. But that money's going into the pool that I'm going to be attacking, and you get bigger payouts. Even if you get the two favorites run first and second, on a normal day, maybe if it's what we would call an ice cold exacta, the two favorites run 1-2. The payout might be on a $2 exacta, say $8 to $12. On Kentucky Derby Day, that same exacta is going to pay probably almost double that, because there's just so much more money in the pool. So that creates an advantage for us. And as we always refer to, it's a plus EV situation. And that's why I pound the Kentucky Derby. And, a shameless plug for me. You mentioned a horse, Animal Kingdom, back a few years back. I think you said 2011, won at big odds. That's the horse that first put me on the map. nationally with my horse racing selections because we did call Animal Kingdom that year. But the big one was 4 years ago, 2017. We invested $390 in bets in the Kentucky Derby for our clients. I gave them the tickets just the exact way that I was playing them. That $390 investment brought back over $9,000 that day.
Oh God,
So
it's amazing.
That's why. So we're playing on house money for the last several years, just with that one score. But that's what it's about, and that's why it's so exciting to be involved in the Kentucky Derby and make the wagers. And that's why I'm here doing your show today, talking about it. And I've done shows all week. People don't care about horse racing until this week, and I'm getting the calls, and I love it.
Yeah, I agree that with the recreational bettor in horse racing was definitely me, even though I'm a pro in every other sport. But it is kind of funny because I would sit around and look at the horses as they were coming into the post, and they have the training partner horse, I guess is what it is. And a lot of times, in kind of a pretty cool way, it looked like the training horse was like like a little coach, nodding the head. And the ones that looked like really confident, that's who I ended up betting at the last second. So there's you have taught me a lot more now. So I'm armed and dangerous for this one. That's for sure.
There's no question. And honestly, there's a lot of times, we look at all the stats and everything else in the racing form, but you talk about looking at the horses on the racetrack. I love watching the horses, those, 5 to 7 minutes before the race actually goes, watching them on the track, because you do get a lot of signals from the horses, things that, I can't just say there's a playbook to look at of what you're looking for with the horses, but I can tell you that there are things that I can tell. One thing I'll give you: if you see a horse that's looks like a lather or a foam on him, a white foam, that horse is hot. He's sweating excessively. It's generally not a good sign a few minutes before the race. He's either, a high-strung horse, or, he's overly excited, and that takes a little bit of the race out of the horse. There's different things that I look at as far as health-wise on what the horse looks like, physical appearance. And then when you talked about confidence, the way the horse looks his head, I'll give you one little tip. If you see a horse that's got his ears pinned back, pretty much that's the look your wife gives you when she's not happy with you, okay? You don't want to be anywhere near that one, okay? If you got the horse got their ears straight up or going back and forth like this, that's a happy horse, confident horse. That is one sign that you can look at, but don't make a selection based on just where the horse's ears are. There are a lot of things to look at, but I can upgrade or downgrade a horse that I like in a particular race when I see him in a post parade.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, with the betting on the horse, well, I'm actually thinking of Essential Quality right now, who's the favorite. You mentioned the pools, and I guess there was talk that Mattress Mac apparently bet $2 million on Essential Quality, and if that's true, and it's a charity thing that I guess he does, because if he wins, and the mattresses go out to whoever. But in learning about the pool, all that would go into the 2-win pool. So I guess there's 3 different pools, right?
Win, place, and show.
Yep.
When you make a win wager, very simple. The horse you pick to win has to win the race. If you bet a horse to place, the horse can finish first or second, but you get what the price is for second, which would be less. If the horse won, he pays a larger number, obviously, but there are 3 separate betting pools. The place pool, there's actually 2 winning bets in the place pool: the horse that won and the horse that finished second, and those would be a smaller payout than what the horse would have been to win. And then there's a third wager, which is a show bet, and your horse can finish first, second, or third. And again, that is a separate betting pool, and there will be 3 winning tickets coming out of that particular pool. And again, The price is determined, John, based on the number of winning tickets, and that is how it is divided out. So for a novice going to the racetrack, the simplest bet is $2 across the board. And what across the board means, you pick a horse and you go to the window and say, give me number 5, $2 across the board. That would be a wager of $6 total, and you would be getting a win wager, a place wager, and a show wager on that particular horse. So you have 3 chances to cash a ticket with that horse. Obviously, if he wins the race, you win all 3 wagers. If he finishes second, you win your place wager and your show wager. And then if he finishes third, you cash just the show ticket. That's the easiest way for a novice getting started, but then there are so many others. And as you put up the graphics, exacta, trifecta, and superfecta, very simply put, an exacta is you're picking the horses to finish first and second. If you say, give me a $2 exacta with horse number 1 and horse number 2, they have to run in that exact order, 1, 2. If you say a $2 exacta box, that's going to cost you $4 because it's 2 tickets. You're playing 1, 2 and 2, 1. So either way those 2 horses finish, as long as they're first and second, you win the exacta wager. Going to a trifecta wager, it's just an extension of the exacta, except now instead of picking the first 2 finishers, you got to pick the correct order of the first 3 finishers, finishing 1, 2, 3. And then the superfecta is an extension of that. You're going from picking the first 3 horses to the first 4 horses. Obviously, John, every time you're adding to the ticket and making it a bigger ticket, it is harder to hit, but the payout is much, much bigger the bigger you go. And when you get a long shot in there, well, you know, sometimes you're going to go to the window to get your cash that ticket, and the teller's going to tell you, you need to take this ticket to the window at the end of the line down there because they're going to have you fill out some IRS paperwork. Uncle Sam wants his share if you win too much in a single race.
Yeah, that would be a good line to be in, though, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure. I mean, that superfecta last year, the 10 center that I had on this chart paid 10 cents, paid $792.58.
Yeah.
So when I
very nice day out. 20-horse field, as you said, there are a ton of combinations that could possibly come in there, and you got to figure them out.
There they are. 20 horses, 116,280 different combinations that you could put 10 cents on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it still doesn't necessarily mean you're going to I guess that would mean you would win one of them.
If you box all the horses, if I can tell you, if you do that on a consistent basis, you're going to be broke very quickly because you're going to hit every race, but most races are not going to cover the cost of your ticket, not even close.
And I don't think there's a human on the planet that could fill out 168,000 betting tickets and place them.
Well, fortunately, not like the old days. We do have, it's computerized, and you use the word box and you say, give me all of the numbers. So they're not, when you go to the window and you make a large wager like that you do have a lot of combinations, you're getting one ticket. They're punching it out and it's all on that one ticket, the combinations that you have.
That's good to know because I'm fascinated by it. So which horse do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's start with the horse that is the favorite, Essential Quality. And with Mattress Mac going to make that wager on Essential Quality, he's already the morning line favorite, 2-1. Once that wager hits the betting pool, it's going to adjust the odds dramatically, and he's going to go off, much less than 2-1 in this race. Now, why is he the favorite in this race? Well, he's the favorite because he deserves it. The horse is 5 for 5. The horse won the 2-year-old Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which is the most prestigious race for 2-year-olds. And automatically, John, when you end the 2-year-old season, the horse that wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is automatically basically going to be the favorite moving forward for the Derby when they come out with what they call the winter future pools, where you can bet months in advance of the Kentucky Derby a horse to win the Kentucky Derby. You're getting much better odds because there are so many horses, that can make the Derby, and so many things can go wrong. I can tell you last year I had a horse, Maxfield, or 2 years ago. We had a horse, Maxfield. We bet for the Derby. We loved this horse when he ended his 2-year-old season, and his first race as a 3-year-old, we jumped in and bet the horse at nice odds before his odds, were going to come down, because as you get closer to the Derby and everybody sees what the horse is doing, the odds are going to change. We got a sweet number and was looking at a horse that, was going to be probably the favorite in the Derby or second choice. And we were getting double digits on the horse in a futures market. And unfortunately, before the Derby, he had an injury and had to be removed from the Derby trail. That ticket goes up in smoke. You don't get your money back because he didn't run in the Derby. That's why it's called a futures pool. It's just like betting a team to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season, and second week of the season they lose their quarterback and are done for the season. You don't get your money back. You got what you got, and so that's the disadvantage of betting the futures market. But they always do install that horse as the early favorite. And history has shown, John, that the horse that wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile generally does not come back and win the Derby. I think there's only been a handful, 2 or 3, that have done that over the last, several years, 20-some years. And the reason for that is a lot of times that Breeders' Cup race is run in November. That's late in the season for 2-year-olds. So if you're still racing hard as a 2-year-old late in your 2-year-old season, sometimes you just don't come back as strong as a 3-year-old. You might have taken a little bit too much out of yourself. Now, with Essential Quality this year, not by design, but the way it worked out is he's only had 2 prep races leading into the Derby. One of the reasons is he got a later start. Part of that was, of course, because he did win the Breeders' Cup. They gave him a little bit of extra time for a break. But then when they did bring him back, normally you like to have 3 prep races leading into the Derby. He only got 2 because he was training at Oaklawn Park, was home base there, and he was pointing to a race that was going to be run there. And that race got moved because of the weather. They lost some training, bad weather in Arkansas and everything. And he ended up, because that race got moved, it changed, what he could race in after that because the races were too close together. So he only got 2 starts, which I feel is a benefit to him. Gave him a little more time to recuperate. And I like to say, mainly because I was right until the championship game, and then I went against myself. But in the basketball tournament, leading into the tournament, everybody was saying, Baylor's not the same team they were at the beginning of the year. That COVID pause hurt them. They missed like 3 weeks. I said, no, that was the best thing that happened to them. They got fresh legs heading into the tournament. They had enough games at the end of the regular season to get their foundation back. And the biggest thing is they avoided injury. We saw in the NCAA tournament this year, heading into the tournament, some key teams lost key players. Michigan, Virginia, Villanova. It hurt them in the tournament. Baylor was healthy, and they had fresh legs, and they won the national championship. Essential Quality's coming in fresh. Only 2 starts this year, 3 last year, 5 for 5. He is the horse to beat on paper. But I do think, as we talk about some other horses, there is a horse that I am very intrigued with that I think is going to give him all he can handle. And I'm looking for, maybe that Exacta coming down the stretch with Essential Quality, and another horse we'll talk about later, unless you want to just go to that one next.
Well, one question about Essential Quality in my studies the last couple of weeks here. He's a very talented horse because he can run different styles. Like he can go with the pace and then close. I guess that's how he was basically a closer in the beginning of his racing career. And then he was able to, pass horses. And betting on a horse that isn't like, I want to say a horse that enjoys running past horses and catching up is a horse that you want to probably be happy betting. But there's one thing that I never heard of this before. He has a tendency to paddle his left front leg, and I know you would know the answer to this. So I'm
what they're talking about is the way the horse travels over the ground. Most horses put their legs straight out, and they cover the ground. It's a more fluent motion. It's more efficient, so to speak. He does what is called paddling. And the best way to describe it is picture how you swim. Okay. You're supposed to come over the top, straight, but some people come a little wider when they're swimming with their thing. And he comes wide with his left leg. Now, somebody looking at the horse would say, if you're looking at two horses running early on and you see one that's paddling and you see one that's straight, you're going to, gravitate to the horse that's straight because it's a more efficient and fluent motion, and you would expect that horse to cover the ground better. But this horse hasn't had any problems with it. It's what he does, and he still does it very well. So not a concern at all as far as that. Now, sometimes you'll hear a commentator say in deep stretch, the race, the guy that's announcing the race will say, the horse is traveling on the wrong lead. He didn't change leads. When horses go into turns and in their straightaway, they lean a certain way. Think about when you're riding in a car. If you go around a bend fast, you go one way or the other. Okay. Yep. And, sometimes you want to lead, for the best, you want to lead into the turn, because you don't want to drift wide. So you're traveling on your inside lead, which is more efficient. When you come out of the turn and you're back in the straightaway, you want to come off that and go back to the outside lead, which is more efficient in the straightaway. And sometimes horses don't change leads quickly. And so you'll see a horse that you might think is, oh shit, he's not going by this horse. He's hanging. And then all of a sudden he does switch the lead. And then you see that spurt at the end. And that's what's happening. So a lot of little minor things of the horse racing. And there's all kinds of equipment that is used to help a horse race better. Blinkers on, blinkers off, what kind of shadow roll they put on it. Sometimes horses get spooked by different things they see on the track. So you try to cover them up, not to see things. Or a horse sometimes has a tendency to run inside. You might only put a blinker or a blind on one side of the horse. That's called a Murphy blind or whatever, so that he only can see out of the one side to keep. There's all, that goes down to when the trainer is training the horse in the morning. The horse can't tell you that he doesn't talk. No horse has talked since Mr. Ed. And these ones can't tell you what they need. It's trial and error when you're training them down and getting them to be their best version of themselves. And that's goes into the shoeing. Different horses wear different shoes, depending on, if they have any foot problems or whatever. So there's a lot involved getting the horses to the races and getting them to perform at the highest level.
That's so interesting to me. So in a field of 20 horses, this will be the biggest field that any of these horses have run in, right?
This is the biggest. Not only is this the biggest number of horses, it's also the furthest distance that any of these horses have raced in their young careers. Most of them, the farthest they have gone is 1.125 miles. This race is 1.25 miles. So they're going to be asked to get that little extra distance. And when you're handicapping the race, just because they won it 1.125 miles doesn't guarantee that they're going to get that extra distance. And one of the fallacies that most people jump to whenever they see the added distance to the Kentucky Derby is automatically say, oh, well, we got to look at those closers. History is not bode well for deep closers that are coming out of from way back. And there's several reasons for that. One of the reasons, anytime you have a closer, doesn't matter what race you're in and what the distance is, you need to have a faster first half than second half of the race, because that horse is way in the back. He needs to make up the ground. So you need those horses on the front end to kind of be coming back to you as you're coming on to them. So you are at the mercy of the pace. Now, where the big problem comes in the Kentucky Derby, and why this is a problem, is the 20-horse field. There's more traffic out there, okay? If you're cruising along on the highway, John, and you're going fast, and you come up on grandma in front of you that's driving slow, and there's no traffic around you, you can just switch lanes real quick, go around grandma, and get back to where you wanted to be. If you're coming up on grandma and she's in your lane and you want to go around her and you go to pass on the outside, but there's other cars there as well, you can't pass, okay? What do you got to do? You got to tap the brakes, okay? And in horse racing, not to throw some more knowledge at you, but that's called when the jockey has to check the horse. By checking the horse, he's tapping the brakes. The tapping of the brakes is he has to grab the reins a little bit, and that stops a horse's momentum. So those are some of the problems why closers are not the best in the Kentucky Derby, because of the size of the field. Traditionally, horses on the front end obviously have an advantage because they're not going to have traffic problems. The problem is when you get races where there's a bunch of horses that want the front end, and if they battle to get the lead, well, those horses are going to kind of burn themselves out if they go too fast, too early, and that's where we see them start to back up a little bit. Then the next group of horses is what we call just off the pace setters. They got good tactical speed to leave the gate well and get themselves into position, but they sit generally just off that first group of horses. There might be 3 horses that are battling for the lead, and then they're sitting maybe a length or 2 off them in 4th or 5th. And then you have what we call stalkers. Stalkers are a little bit further back than that. They're not closers, but they're not running in those early fractions. They're a little bit off the pace. What's nice about a stalker is that if you do get that honest pace up front, when they make the move, because those horses are a little bit tired, because they are so close to them in that stalking position, they get first run at them, and generally not a lot of traffic. It's, they're only going to have 3-4 horses in front of them that they got to navigate around. Those have been very good horses in the Derby. Then you've got what we have, the closers that we talked about, and those are horses that come from behind. And then there's a second group to those closers, and those are called deep closers, stone cold closers. And those horses run literally last in every race, next to last. They're in the final, 3. They might be at some point in the race, they might be 15, 20 lengths out of it, because that's their running style. And then they have that big closing kick, brush, you might call it, where they make that one big run and, hope to carry it through the stretch. Those horses have had the least success in the Kentucky Derby.
It's awesome. Somehow I think I'm taking a guess here, and I'll accept it if I'm wrong, but I think the next one of the next horses I'm guessing you're going to talk about is highly motivated.
Highly motivated is a horse that we are going to talk about. He's not the one that I think that can upset the apple cart, so to speak, but this is a horse that is going to be a major player in here. And why most people are going to talk about highly motivated is the fact that he gave Essential Quality all he could handle in that last race in the Bluegrass. Now, 2 things that I got to point out about the Bluegrass. One is that Essential Quality definitely wanted to win that race to remain undefeated. You want, if you get a horse that does win the Triple Crown and did it as an undefeated horse, the syndication, when that horse goes to the breeding shed is going to be monumental. I mean, that horse is going to
Can't
make a ton
imagine.
of money racing, but he's going to make even more money as a stallion. So Essential Quality did want to win that race, but he had enough points already to get into the Derby. He didn't need to win that race. Highly Motivated was on the outside looking in as far as the points were going for the Derby. He needed to finish in the top 3 would have got him in. Top 2 would have guaranteed him getting in. And they went all out. In fact, they changed the racing strategy in that race and put the horse on the lead in that race, which generally he sat off the pace. They took it to him. They raced aggressively. The question is, because they did race him so hard in that race, did they maybe take a little bit too much out of him leading into the Derby? And that's why, I talk about the point system leading into the Derby and such. That last prep race, yes, you want to win it because generally those races are going for 750,000, maybe on a minimum to $1 million purse structure. So yeah, you want to win a big race like that. It's a big payday. But if you already got enough points in for the Derby, the big prize is the Kentucky Derby. And we use this saying in sports when we talk about, let's go back to college basketball in the national championship. Okay. It's all fine and dandy to be the number 1 ranked team all year and, maybe flirt with an undefeated season, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't win the national championship. And we have the saying, you don't want to peak too soon. And sometimes that happens with people on the road to the Kentucky Derby. If there's a horse that's got enough points to get into the Derby and is not undefeated, so we're not talking about that big, undefeated breeding syndication on the line. If I'm the owner and I do have horses, I will tell them, get what you can get in this race, but don't gut them. We want something left in the tank. And a lot of times that's what they'll do. They'll race the horse. You'll see the horse flying in the stretch, but you won't see the jockey, whipping him to death, cave his ribs in to try to get up to win the race. They want that horse moving forward to the Derby. So Highly Motivated, he was all out in that race. No question about it. Let's see how he bounces back. Post position 17, historically, nobody's won from there. Okay. So he's trying to break a big jinx. And rumor has it that he is highly motivated to break that jinx.
That's pretty good. So, I'm probably going out of order here with your horses, but you mentioned, horses that qualify and then rest. Is Rock Your World one of those horses?
No, Rock Your World.
He won the
Rock Your
World. The Santa Anita. Yeah,
he needed that race. So they did race him to win that race. He needed the points, but Rock Your World is the other horse that, when I was talking about upset the apple cart, this is a horse that's on the upward trajectory. He's only had 3 career starts. And it's funny that you mentioned Animal Kingdom, because I'm going to make a reference to Animal Kingdom with Rock Your World. And I'm also going to make another reference. I know you're going to ask me later about horses, and it does apply to Rock Your World as well, as he didn't race as a 2-year-old. So he's going against some history there. But I'm going to compare him to a horse that handled that history. And this horse does remind me of Justify. Justify did not race as a 2-year-old. Okay. There's only been 2 horses in the history of the Kentucky Derby that has ever won the Derby that didn't race at 2. Justify snapped a streak. And I know you have the year that it was. The horse's name was Apollo. And it was way back when, before that streak was broken. But Rock Your World is going to try that same path. He does have 3 starts this year. So as I always said, I like to see a horse have 3 prep races heading into the Derby. And he missed being raced at 2 by 1 day. If he would have raced one day early, he raced on New Year's Day, was his first start of his career. If that race would have been on New Year's Eve instead of New Year's Day, then technically he would have been a 2-year raced at 2 and nobody would have been talking about it. So I'm not really that concerned about it. But the comparison to Animal Kingdom is Animal Kingdom, when he won the Kentucky Derby, was a horse that started his career on grass. And the reason he was such a high price is people questioned whether or not he could handle the dirt. Well, Rock Your World ran first two races on grass, won them both. And then they put him on dirt for the first time. And he ran, not only did he win the race, he ran his best race ever, won in hand by 4.5 lengths or 4 3/4, and put up a 100 buyer speed figure. Okay. Triple digit buyer for a 3-year-old early in the season is huge. This horse is not peaked yet. Okay. With only 3 starts, and I always talk about it, horses that have 7, 8, 9 career starts heading into the Derby, they're pretty much what they're going to be. Okay. They might get a little bit better later in the year, but we're not going to see that big jump. Horses that only have 3 or 4 starts, they're still learning and they're still getting better. And I think this horse has the license to make another jump. And even if he runs back to that 100 buyer, Essential Quality is going to have all he can handle. And Rock Your World style, based on that last race, is he's going to be one of those horses that's on the front end or going to be right behind the horses on the front end, sitting second or third. So Essential Quality is going to have to run him down. The other advantage he has is he draws outside of Essential Quality. Essential Quality has the 14 post. He has the 15 post. This means he's going to break from the gate. He can be on the outside of Essential Quality. Now, generally you say, well, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And if you're down on the inside as opposed to the outside, you're covering less ground. This is true. But if you're racing in tight quarters, 100% of the time, you would rather be the horse on the outside than the horse on the inside, because the jockey can, not interfere with you, but, make it tight quarters. And it's human nature. The horses will go through, a small opening, but they'll go through an opening that's wider, a lot easier than one that's small. Some horses don't like to do it at all, but it gives you an advantage where, as a jockey, you can use your horse and the rail as, giving you a little more of an advantage. So that's something that you've got to look at, and I think is an advantage for him in this race. And when we go to the next horse that I think is a serious contender, I'll point out, and it's why I was high on this horse in his last race, but that's Hot Rod Charlie. If you go back and look at Hot Rod Charlie's race, go 2 races back and watch the replay. Coming down the stretch, it was a 3-horse battle. There was a horse on the inside, a horse in the middle, and a horse on the outside. Hot Rod Charlie was the horse in the middle. And the other 2 horses did just what I was talking about. The outside horse was pushing inside. The inside horse was pushing outside. And Hot Rod Charlie, they were going head to head, was stuck in the middle. And he raced game right to the wire in that race. He didn't win the race, but he only got beat by a head. And I said on my show the following week when the next time he raced, and I told everybody, go back and look at that race. And if he would have been the outside horse in that race, he wins it easily. He come back and won his next race easily. And they changed his style. They had him out there early in the race, and they couldn't catch him. And he's a horse that's got tactical speed, can leave or sit off the pace. And that's something that is an advantage, because the good jockeys, they make adjustments. They have a game plan going in, but when that gate breaks, if your horse breaks a step slow, or it's too fast of a pace in that first, eighth of a mile, as you're heading to the quarter, you got to make adjustments on the fly. The better jockeys make better decisions. That's why they're the better jockeys. And that's why we look at things. And going back to Rock Your World, even though he did nothing wrong, Umberto Rispoli, who had rode the horse in back-to-back victories, John Sadler, the trainer of Rock Your World, made a very tough decision. And I've been involved in these decisions on both ends, having a jockey pick off my horse and me picking a different jockey to put on my horse. It's never a fun situation. But he made the decision when Joel Rosario became available, because the horse he had been riding is skipping the Derby concert tour. He made the decision to switch jockeys, because Rosario he's one of the best jockeys in the country, has tons of big race experience, has won Triple Crown races before, where Umberto Rispoli, although he's one of the up-and-coming younger riders on the California circuit, just doesn't have the experience in the big races that Joel Rosario has. So John Sadler really loves his horse, really thinks this horse has a big shot, and he made a tough decision in making the jockey change, but went with what he felt gives him the best opportunity to win the race. And to give your listeners a little quick handicapping lesson, it's a 10-second one that you can use. If a jockey's been riding two different horses in the same race, when you look at the past performance lines and you see him on one and not the other, the jockey generally picks the horse he likes best. That's how a jockey makes his money, is based on what the horse earns. The horse that wins the race is going to get 60% of the purse. The purse in this particular case is $3 million. So the winning horse is going to get 60% of $3 million. The jockey that rode that horse is going to get a percentage of that. Now, granted, the horse that finishes second is getting, a big chunk too, 25%. But you want to pick the horse you think has the best chance to win, because that makes the most money for you as a jockey. So it's a handicapping tip that, generally speaking, when a jockey's been riding two different horses and he makes a decision, he knows what he had on both of those horses, and usually he's going to make the better decision.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because that's the driver of the car, so to speak. And
yeah,
I can imagine that start with 20 horses side by side. It's like a funnel down to that first corner, and it probably does get pretty active, I guess, for kind of like a New York City expressway before the COVID.
It does.
So
John, to while you're on that subject, to point out, for years, if you drew the post position 1, it was like a death sentence. Okay, most people think, oh, post 1, that's the best place to be. You're right there at the rail. You're going to travel the least amount of ground. In the Kentucky Derby, it was a death sentence, because what had happened is, with a 20-horse field, and they're lined up, you're right at the rail coming out of post 1. Those horses from the outside, it's almost like a tidal wave, because they're trying to break out of the gate and get over as quickly as they can. And your horse can get pinched down at the rail. You can get locked in. Your horse is getting a lot of dirt thrown in its face and everything, and it's tight quarters as you spoke of. Last year, they made a change at the Kentucky Derby. And one of the reasons that was so bad is, as you know, we don't see 20-horse fields that often. Basically, it's the Kentucky Derby. That's the only time. So the starting gate only had 14 stalls in it. Well, for the Derby, they had to put a second gate in, and they called it the auxiliary gate, and that's where they had the other 6 horses to make the 20-horse field. Because it was 2 separate gates, and you have to trailer the gate out there with a tractor or a truck, something pulling it, when they set them side by side, there was a gap between the starting gate and the auxiliary gate. So the horses that had post position 14 and post position 15 kind of had an advantage because there was less chance of bumping because they had an opening on one side of themselves. But because of that opening, it stretched the whole way across the track and it put the one horse dead up against the rail. They eliminated the auxiliary gate, and for the Kentucky Derby starting last year, Churchill Downs invested in a new starting gate. They only use it for the Derby. It is a full 20 stall gate. It's one gate. So they don't have that gap in the middle. Because they don't have that gap in the middle, they were able to move the whole gate off the rail a little bit. So that gap that we had, so to speak, between 14 and 15, we now have a gap between the rail and the horse coming out of post position 1. So the one post is not as bad as it was. It's still not favorable. If you don't have good gate speed, you're going to get stuck in there. And the horse that's coming out of the number 1 post, Known Agenda, is a horse I think that really has a big shot in this race. He won the Florida Derby, and this horse has raced tremendously his last 2. And there's been one thing that's been different. They made an equipment change. We're going full circle. I talked about the horse can't tell you what he wants. Well, the trainer and the jockey, in talking with one another, decided, you know what, I think we need to get blinkers on this horse, get him more focused earlier in the race. Since they added blinkers, he's 2 for 2, won both races and won them impressively. Now, I will say this. In the Florida Derby, Known Agenda got a perfect trip. He was down at the rail the entire race, so he saved ground, and he didn't have that traffic problem that we talked about, because when they hit the top of the stretch, when he was looking for daylight, a horse drifted out some, and he was able to swing to the outside. He went from the inside to the outside and had a clear path to run at the horses on the lead, and he did it in a slingshot motion. We talked about that trajectory coming off of a turn. Well, he took that momentum of swinging off the turn, which carries your momentum wide, and that's the hole open. So he just went through that hole at full stride and never had to restart the horse, check the horse, or, because a lot of times you do have to kind of steer him through a hole and you got to hold on to him till that hole opens. He didn't have to do that. That was a big advantage. Can he get that same trip in the Derby? Yeah, that can happen again. But again, we're multiplying the number of horses in there. So there's more horses that he's going to have to zigzag through and keep those openings happening. So that's why I downgraded Known Agenda a little bit, but he's still a horse I'll be using in the exotics. And the exotics are those exactas, trifectas, and superfectas. I think he hits the board. He has a good shot to hit the board, but I think he's compromised a little bit as far as winning the race because of that post position.
Yeah, very interesting. Great stuff. And I'm picturing the race as you're talking, and it almost seems like they'll get spread out a little bit on the back stretch, and then the different styles of horse will then they kind of converge again going into turn 3. And whoever navigates through 3 and 4 the most efficiently is probably going to have a good chance to win it, I guess. Is that right?
Yes. And what happens is generally in most races, you've got the first quarter is going to be the faster quarter because you've got horses that are leaving the gate trying to get to the front. Okay. So they're using their first move there. They want to get their position. Once you establish the position where you want, in an ideal situation, the jockey on the front end then wants to get his horse a breather somewhere in the middle part of the race because he wants to have some gas left in the tank when they turn for home to hold off those horses that are going to be coming from behind. So either the second quarter or the third quarter, when they're moving down the backside, is when you try to get your horse to relax and go just a little bit slower. The horses that are right behind you are generally going to do that as well because they want to conserve energy too. So with the horses on the front end trying to slow down a little bit to save energy, that's where you see them tighten the pack up a little bit, because those horses that are racing from behind start to creep up a little bit and get closer to the field, and you get that tighter, tightly grouped bunch. And that's when, again, you have the problem of navigating through traffic. Now, sometimes horses will not relax. If you get a horse fired up and go to, and send him out of the gate and go to the front, when you try to get him to relax, he says, oh, hell no. Okay. He's fired up and he's rolling, and he doesn't want to, slow down. And the last thing you want to do is fight with your horse on the front end. If you grab into him a little bit with the reins and he responds and relaxes and slows down, that's great. But if you're pulling on him to slow down and he's fighting you the other way, now you're counterproductive. Instead of conserving energy that you wanted to do, the horse is actually using more energy because he is fighting you to go on. And sometimes the jockey's just got to give up and let the horse go. Now, there's also a term, free flow on the front end. If a horse gets on the lead and nobody is challenging him, so he's getting to roll with nobody at his throat. Sometimes people don't understand, if they might be going what appears on the clock, maybe, a half a second or a second slower than what you expected for the first quarter. So you say, oh, they're not going that fast. But there's actually 3 horses across the track. Mentally, that horse is still perceiving that he's battling a horse. And that's why a lot of times they will put the horse that's stalking or whatever will sit just to his flank. He won't be head to head with him, but he'll be like at the end of his neck, the beginning of his shoulder, so that both horses don't feel like they're in an absolute battle at that point. And if you ever watch, go watch whenever they show horses training. Like if you go to the Daily Racing Forum site, they have like the Clockers Report, and they'll show videos of a horse training. A lot of times the trainer sends out a horse with that horse. They'll train in a pair. Generally what they do is they'll have the lead horse that's the pace setter. And the horse that they're training for the big race, they race him 2 or 3 lengths off of that horse so that he sees a target and has something to shoot at. And then when they make the move in the stretch to come up on that horse, they let the horse run at him, and they try to time it so he just gets by him at the wire, because you don't want to break the spirit of the other horse that's training with him too.
Right. Yep.
But then you might say, well, why don't they just go around the track together? You don't do that, because then you have that thing of what I'm talking about. The 2 horses are battling the whole time, and it's counterproductive. So just the ins and outs of horse racing, from nothing that you're going to learn at reading a racing form. This is me from all of my knowledge and training, the horses that I have. Not that I actually train my horses. That's why we pay the trainers. But when I was back in Pittsburgh with my horses for all of those years, I was a hands-on owner, and I would be at the track all the time. When a horse had to go to a vet clinic, I was there at the vet clinic. I can read horse x-rays, pretty well, unfortunately, because I've had too many horses have problems over the years and understand things. But that also helps me, John, in understanding what I'm looking at when I'm handicapping the races as well, because, I have a knowledge that, other people that just bet races don't have. I got both sides, both sides of the business.
Yeah, no doubt. So in terms of like, to pick your brain about some possible good best bets, we don't perhaps have to do the superfecta, because that's another 2-hour show on top of another one. But just mathematically, I could probably talk about that for an hour, and nobody wants to hear that. But it just seems like Essential Quality is really going to have to run a great race and hold off multiple challenges from different styles of horses. And it's starting to make me think that 2 to 1 is a little bit of a rich price to even start an exact out with.
Well, you don't want to not use them because, oh, the odds are too bad. Remember what we said at the opening of the show. There's a lot of dead money in this pool. So even if the favorite comes in, there's going to be payouts there. The odds on the tote board are going to be a lot lower to win than the payoffs will be, involving exactas and such, because Mattress Mac is not throwing $2 million into the exacta pool. Remember, every bet is its own separate betting pool. Win pool, place pool, show pool. The exacta pool was its own. The trifecta is its own, and its superfecta is its own. What I can tell people what I like to do, and this is how we hit that big race in 2017, the $9,000 score, is the horse that I was keying on in that race didn't even win the race. He ran second, but he was a huge long shot, and he made the ticket for me with that payout. And what I like to do in these big races with my trifecta betting, where you're trying to pick the first 3 finishers, I'll do what I call a pyramid bet, where I might put my top 3 or 4 horses on the first line of that trifecta. Then I go to the second line, and I'll repeat those 4 horses on the second line to run second, but I'll add a horse or 2 that I think is the next most likely horse to hit the board. And then when I go to the third ticket, the third line of that pyramid to finish third, I have all of the horses that I had in the first part of the ticket. I have all of the horses that I had in the second part of the ticket, and I add a couple more down on the third spot, because obviously it's easier to run third. Anybody can run third than actually win in the race. So I want to have more coverage down there. Now, obviously, the more horses that you put on a ticket like that, the more the ticket costs. But as I said again at the beginning of the show, that it's a situation where the pool was so large that it is worth investing more money in the race, because your payout is going to be bigger. And for example, I'm just going to my Twitter account, because I have that winning ticket from that year on my Twitter account, and I'm going to tell you what that ticket cost and what the trifecta actually paid, to give you an example. And that race where we hit that trifecta, it was a $160 ticket, that particular wager. And that trifecta brought back $8,297 for the $160 ticket. Then we also hit the exacta several times in that race. The exacta for $2 brought back $336. Now, on that particular ticket, what I had done to hit that big ticket is I had 4 horses in the first spot. I had 6 horses in the second spot. And then I had a lot of coverage in the third spot. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 horses on the bottom. So we went 4, 6, 9 on that pyramid of the horses. And for the ticket, for $1 ticket, it cost $160. And that trifecta for $1 ticket brought back $8,297. Yes, I had to sign those papers for Uncle Sam.
I bet you did
with that payout. But this is why in this type of a race, it is okay to have the added coverage and spend a little bit more money, because you hit the race, you're generally going to get back your investment. Now, if I played that many horses on a normal card that had 10 or 12 horses, no. I'm not going to get that kind of money back. It's a bad bet, and you don't do it. But here in the Kentucky Derby, because of the inflated wagering pools and the millions and millions of dollars that are going to be bet on Saturday, and the percentage of those millions of dollars that are going to be bet by people that are betting their first horse race this year, yeah, we're going to do that. Because remember, we're battling against every other horse bettor that day. We're not battling the books. We're battling the other horse bettors, and that's an advantage for me.
Yeah, I'd say so. The pyramid is something new that I've been studying as well. So the 4, 6, 9, your key horses are 4, right? Those horses have to do well.
You start the race out with, who are my best 4 horses, and put those horses on top. Then when you go into the second spot, just repeat those 4 horses, add 2 more horses to that list. Who do I think of the next 2 horses to hit this ticket? And then you go to the last one, you repeat the horses that you had in the second line, which is the 6 horses that you used so far, add 3 more horses that you think have a chance to run third, and that ticket will cost you $160. And you know what? You hit the try. We get some prices in there. You're going to make a nice score. You might not make an $8,000 score on a dollar trifecta. Those don't happen all the time, but I can guarantee you most of the time you're going to see these pay over $700, which is good return on the trifectas. And more often than not, if you look at the average payouts, these races will be 4 figures. And for $160 investment, yeah, that's a good investment for me.
Yeah, and then I'm going to try one.
Yeah, it's what
I have no expectations that it'll win, but I think I'm going to try one just for the excitement and the fun. That's
it is.
Sometimes we call it pizza money, but
yeah, well, they don't call it the most exciting 2 minutes in sports for anything. And as I constantly joke every time I say that, the most exciting 2 minutes in sports, the wife says, "What, are you talking about our honeymoon night?"
No, that's funny. That's very funny. Yeah. So, anything else you want to add here? Do you want to talk about another horse? Or
there's, you're going to look to try to find some live long shots as well. We talked about, we covered 4 horses that definitely have good shots, to be in this race. Some intriguing long shots that are there that we didn't talk about running through the field. I will tell you a horse that's been consistent on the trail is Midnight Bourbon. This is a horse that raced through the fairground circuit. There was 3 prep races there at the fairgrounds. I think the fairground races might have been the most competitive of the prep races because, as you see, there was a different horse win all 3 of those races. Now, you could either say, okay, does that mean that the fairgrounds races were mediocre because there was 3 different winners, or does it mean it was very deep and they just took turns beating one another? A lot of times you'll see, we talk about like maybe a division in basketball or a division in baseball where there might be 3 teams that are all maybe at around 55% win percentage. And then you look at another division and, you got the Dodgers at, winning at 65%. And, oh, well, that's the best. No, it's not the best division in baseball. It means the Dodgers are very good, but the rest of the division's very bad. The division that has 3 teams that are all winning teams, and then when they play each other, they're taking turns beating each other. Those are decent teams, okay? It's just they're all in the same division, and because they play each other so much, they're beating each other up, and that hurts, the win percentage. So that's the way I'm looking at the fairground. So Midnight Bourbon is a horse that's raced very consistently, and you look at a horse that has a shot, to hitting the ticket at a price. There's other horses. Bob Baffert has only 1 horse in the Derby. We've seen over the years that he's always had 2 or 3 horses make the Derby. Last year, he had 2 horses make the Derby until Derby Day, when the one got scratched in a post parade because he reared up in the paddock and fell over, hurt his trainer and everything. And that left him with just one horse in the Derby. Lo and behold, Authentic won the Kentucky Derby last year. He has Medina Spirit in this year's race. I just don't think Medina Spirit is as good as these other horses. And I just, there's a saying, once you get to the races, you are what you are. It doesn't matter what your breeding is. Because I've seen a ton of well-bred, high-priced horses amount to nothing, okay? And we've also seen not so well-bred horses that didn't sell for a lot turn out to be decent. If I tell you what Medina Spirit was bought for originally and then was sold for and now is in the Derby, you're going to shake your head. This horse, it's not big name breeding. The horse sold as a yearling for $1,000. Now, I don't know what the horse looked like then.
Wow.
I'm guessing it was on the small side. Might have looked a little, we use the term ribby, you could see his ribs, he needs some groceries on him. Then they put the horse in training, the people that bought the horse for $1,000, and they turned the horse over early in its 2-year-old season at what is called a 2-year-old in training cell. And what they do at these cells is they'll take the horses and actually sprint them a short distance. They'll get clocked and stuff, and people will look at them and make a decision off of how they look. And the horse sold for $35,000. So the guy that bought him for $1,000, he 35x'd his investment. He's going, yeah, 35x. Well, now that the guy that bought him for $35,000, he's running for $3 million on Saturday and has made $315,000 with them. So I think he's going, I did okay. But I still look at it. It's just hard to imagine a horse like that winning the Derby. But the horse, has outperformed his breeding. No question about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome information. I could listen to this forever.
And unfortunately, I can talk forever.
It's great. But I know you have to get going here. I think for your next show is. I know you gave it to me.
Anybody's in Las Vegas today, 2:00 Pacific, or you can find it, and we'll try to send a link out later today. I'm doing a show live, the TC Martin radio show here in Las Vegas. They're broadcasting live from the Las Vegas Strip in the sports book at Cosmo Casino. And if you've never been to the Cosmo, it is a happening place. The sports book is right there as you step. It is the only sports book in Las Vegas that you step off of Las Vegas Boulevard and through the front doors, and you're in the sports book. It's the first thing right off to the right there. It's a very cool place. So if you're in Las Vegas today, head over to the Cosmo, stop by, say hello, listen to the show, and we'll be repeating a lot of the stuff that I just said here today. And John, if you don't mind, I'd like to give a little shameless plug. 2 plugs.
No, go ahead.
We do a weekly horse show. Myself and my co-host, Sig Las Vegas. You can join me and Sig every Friday. It's called the Pony Pundits. And our good friend Joe Ranieri hosts the show. You can check that out at Wager Talk and our YouTube channel. And of course, you can follow our Twitter feeds. And then if you actually want to jump on board and get my actual race selections, the way I am betting the race and sharing that with my customers, you can head over to wagertalk.com. I have an all-access package up on Saturday. It will include the Kentucky Derby with exact betting strategies that, like I told you, how we did the different tickets. I lay it out for you so you can read it right off of your smartphone to the teller, or just hand them your phone and say, give me this. And you can punch the tickets for you. You can check that out. It's just $39. And you will get my baseball, basketball, and hockey plays, anything I have on Saturday. And we're on a nice run in the sports. Last 23 or 24 days, we're on a 31-16 run, all sports. So check it out. I'm done with the shameless plugs.
No, that's great. That's great. You do it a lot better than I do. I have trouble doing plugs for myself. I'm much better at like plugging guys like yourself.
I
I guess that's the way
appreciate
it is. But that's good because we have Manny's pub show. The Predictive Playbook has Manny's Pub, which is a bunch of wager talk and sports memo professionals stopping by, to see Manny, which is, I guess, basically me. But it's kind of a relaxed but focused show. And Tony Finn is on it, and he's about as funny as the day is long,
I was
and
going to say
just
it's
that
not
humor.
relaxed if Tony's on there.
Uh,
Tony's out there.
as a host, sometimes
It's
I start getting like, where's he going with this? Where's he going with this? But it's all good, and I think we're gonna have 6 and maybe 7 different guys coming in. So Rob Vino, Tony Finn, myself are the regulars every single day, and then we have guys drop in for 10 minutes just to say hi, give a free pick, what's going on on their site, their profile page, what they have going, any 5%ers. And it's a virtual pub. We pretend to have. Well, actually, I think Fridays we actually bring the real beer.
I
So
think
that'll end right
I've
when your
seen
show
many
starts.
shows with Tony. I think Tony's brought something to every show that he's done at Wager Talk.
He's the greatest guy.
I've done
I can be.
with Tony, and he's hilarious. And my schedule's just been a little hectic the last few weeks. I will drop by very soon and drop a replay with you guys and say hi to the gang and give Tony some crap.
Oh, yeah. Well, that goes with the show. It wouldn't be the Manny's Pub show if it wasn't for that. So, Marco, thank you very much for being on the show. It's $39, listeners, to go get his all access package, and no kidding around. It's an investment in yourself, and it's only $39, which is about maybe 4 or 5 craft beers. So think about that. That's how I put things in perspective. It's not 39. It's put it in perspective of something else. But trust me on it. Give it a shot, and you'll be glad you did. Again, Marco, thank you for being on, and for Marco, myself, and the Predictive Playbook, may all the wins be yours.